And so, there wasn't anything swept under the rug. There wasn't some dirty secret. We handled it head on. And also will say that forgiveness and grace
against the UGA permitted drinking and driving among coaches and staff, and that culture of recklessness is what led to the fatal crash. Bowles claims that, quote, coaches and staff regularly drank alcohol at Coach Kirby Smart's residence during recruiting events, and then in athletic.
I mean, Jackson State paid a guy $1 million last year that was a really good Division I player to come to school. It was in the paper, and they bragged about it. Nobody did anything about it.
At LSU.
He lost his job partly because of this, and in that sense, Kansas took this more seriously than LSU did, especially given the fact that
you seem to think that there's something that this is some kind of coach to coach. We're going to work a deal here, and that's not my understanding.
Sarkisian quickly admitted he'd mixed prescription drugs with alcohol and said he'd undergo unspecified treatment.
The way I acted was irresponsible.
Sir, I will attempt to answer.
Since then, several other...
Today, I announced my resignation as head football coach at the University of Notre Dame, effective at the end of the 1996 season.
What do you tell Dave for you guys playing this game in memory of Declan Sullivan? How do you go forward? What do you tell
Perfect. All of our fans think that. You all think that. That's what you write about. That's the message that you send out there. And yeah, I worry about it all the time. I may be the only one, but I do worry about it.
You don't do that. And so I said, Plate, did that man say that to you? Skip, in the black community, if somebody say, I put that on my kids, I put that on my mama, take it to the bank.
With law enforcement on the investigation. He was removed from play for the Pac-12 championship game in December, but returned to the field for the Sugar Bowl and national championship in January. A warrant revealed
I'm a D+ hire, and every day I go to work, I remind myself I'm a D+ hire.
T-shirt affected their hearts. Once I learned how that network felt about Black Lives Matter, I was disgusted and knew it was completely unacceptable to me.
His thoughts.
Pain and discomfort.
And not want to help. You know what I mean? It's like wearing a hoodie and putting your hands at 10 and 2. Oh God, I better look out because I'm wearing Nike gear. Like what? What are we talking about?
Outlining LSU's mishandling of sexual misconduct cases was released, in which allegations of Miles exhibiting inappropriate behavior towards female students was detailed.
When video surfaced of Sarkisian had gone to a pre-practice meeting smelling of alcohol. And back in August, Hayden had stern words when video surfaced of Sarkisian at a pep rally cursing and slurring his words.
It was a really big win, and I remember Mike Gundy called me the N-word. That's what I remember.
Not into
Williams
sports.
added, I wanted to...
What are you doing? You jerking me around.
I'm not, sir. Honestly, they said 2 minutes. Are they ready?
Right. I told you, this was not cleared with me.
Tornadoes since Tuesday. Declan Sullivan, a student videographer at the athletics department, was shooting football practice. Officials say he was standing on top of a tower when he later died.
Association
a cameraman
SUVs
for the local.
Right there. It is a text to Bowles and others from a staffer who wrote, Cochran told me I gotta get a prospect effed up tonight, so gonna head downtown for the association's rented SUV all during that week.
The next coach in line to call out on the blatant hypocrisy of what the media talks about is no other than Lou Holtz. Now, Holtz is somebody that should be spoken about and talked about. He is seen as the legend, the darling, whom everybody loves. Now, we know his tenure at Minnesota was not without controversy. Just prior to the 1991 Orange Bowl, the NCAA implicated the Holtz-era Golden Gophers for recruiting violations, which seems not to be talked about since ESPN loved him as their face and ambassador for almost 2 decades. Now let's continue. Now these sanctions handed down in March 1991 included a bowl ban in 1992 for the Golden Gophers. Yes, a bowl ban, and 2 more years of continued probation. Now he called out a lot of black players during the NFL protest, and he stood firm on it. But there were other things going on with a man like Lou who act like he was holier than thou. Well, we got him, ladies and gentlemen. I am doing a job that the media refuses to do because these male coaches looks like their fathers, their brothers, their uncle, so they refuse to call them out. So we will now. This man was caught mistreating an intern who was filming him, and this is the Lou that everybody seems to love. This is the real man who calls himself Lou.
Mic check for Coach Holt.
Put that on my phone. Okay, I'll hold it. They aren't even in sports. They are not into sports. What are you doing? You jerking me around.
Right.
I told you, this was not cleared with me. Don't ever have to worry about don't interview with me ever again. I just asked you to be honest and not lie. No, I don't. How you can do this? I asked you 1 minute. I would come over. I'd put on. I'd do it. I asked for 1 minute. That's all I needed. I've been standing here for 5.
You can hear her crying in the full video. You can actually hear it even more clearer. She's crying. She's trying to reason with him like it's not her fault. He doesn't even want to hear it, but they tell us these coaches like Lou Holtz, Deion Sanders can never be like them. They're way better than him. I've shown you coaches after coaches who the world loves have done million times over what they compare to what Deion has done. And this shows you the blatant complexion of protection of selection. But we'll continue on. Now, Lou Holtz didn't just go on the camera and embarrass this woman and disrespect her. Lou Holtz has also mistreated players who were injured, such as the Hoffman brothers, who look like Lou Holtz, and he did it the same to them. Steve Hoffman also says Holtz tried to run him out of South Bend and back to school in Texas after he was injured at Notre Dame, and Holtz called him a coward for not playing through a shoulder injury that had required surgery. So how can I be a coward? I understand if you're mad at your players hurt and not wanting to play, but if they're injured, how can they even play? But this is the coach that's protected. Now, Hoffman's brother, Mike Hoffman, said Holtz would try to throw, I think that was his dad, but he said Holtz would try to throw injured players out of the athletic dorm, least they demoralize the other players. Like, he wanted to practice a culture of tarnishing people, hurting people, all that. But they tell us this guy, Lou Holtz, he's holier than thou and picture perfect like Kodak. Now, Hoffman also said he called me a coward. He said I shouldn't bother to come back to school in the fall. The player said he grabbed my face mask and then purposely spit at me. The other players knew what happened. Can you imagine if this happened under the helms of Deion Sanders? What would the media do? Look what they're doing to his kids alone. Now, there's a football player by the name of Earl Mosley. What happened to him is wrong. Now, he's an ex-Notre Dame assistant, and he had testified on tape Thursday in the age discrimination suit of a former colleague. He said he was assaulted by then coach Lou Holtz during the 1996 season. Like, you guys can read the reports here and what Holtz did to this guy. You can read it deeper, but the fact that the media doesn't bring any of these up, but they're trying to bring what Shiloh Sanders did in 2015 when he was 15 or 14, and that goes unseen than less what this is really about. It's about the complexion of what Deion Sanders looks like. I've showed you evidence after evidence how the media are reserved for certain coaches, and others, they're quickly to put out stories that have no legs at all. But the ones that have the legs with the coaches who looks like them, they do more than other not. Now, the hypocrite that's known as a Lou Holtz, he also called out Jim Harbaugh for the same thing that he was being involved in. Now, it's just kind of brazy how the kettle calling the pot black when he's the main one involved in these things, involving in recruiting violations that actually led to Minnesota losing a bowl game and getting 3 years of probation. But this is what goes on. They get to say anything they want that goes unchallenged. Looking more, Notre Dame decided to distance itself from Lou Holtz because of the RNC speech that he chose to have with no other than President Trump. What was that speech about? Let me just play it for you guys.
Reasons why I supported President Trump before he ever had the nomination. Number one, I trusted him. When he told you something, he meant it. He said what he meant, and he meant what he said. He promised that what everything he said he would do, he did. So I trust him completely. When he says something, you can take it to the bank.
Now, what's weird is that Notre Dame chose to get rid of associations with the one and only Lou Holtz only after he took a picture with Donald Trump, which is very
reasons
weird.
why I support.
This is weird for a lot of reasons, because the things he actually did should have been the main reasons they disassociate themselves with Mr. Holtz, but it seems they're trying to go on the bandwagon to certain minority groups by showing disassociation, which is weird because we can call out Biden on a few things, but that's not neither here or there. We're not trying to get into politics here. But what was beautiful about Lou Holtz, the best thing he ever did for college football was this right here.
No questions? Let me read a statement here. You've probably seen it. I will read it in its entirety as quickly as I can. Hopefully it'll answer most of your questions. The ones it does not answer, I will attempt to answer. Today I announced my resignation as head football coach at the University of Notre Dame, effective at the end of the 1996 season.
We're giving Lou Holtz the Medal of Freedom for lifetime of racism. Let's not forget about Urban Meyer. I'm not calling him racist at all. That's not what we're talking about. But we've known all the scandals that he's been into. I don't even need to bring up his scandals, the sweeping Ohio State situation, the things that Utah we heard, man, just a lot. Aaron Hernandez, the crimes committed at Florida Gators University, the Ohio State scandals that he clearly was part. He seems to be getting jobs after jobs after jobs, no matter what sanctity he keeps violating. Even when he went to the professional level of the NFL, he did some of the same things at Jacksonville Jaguars, where he protected a racist coach and strength coach, I think that was, and just as quick as possible, jobs are being offered as wild, because now the pundits at ESPN, every single job opening, they keep referencing, should we get Urban Meyer's? Let's go look at Urban Meyer's. Yeah, if Urban Meyer's last name was Sanders, Deion Sanders that is, would he even be getting talked about the next coaching candidacy? This is wild to me, because coaches who have been in the most scandals, such as Urban Meyer's, you're not even talked about anymore if you're the complexion of a Deion Sanders. They make movies out of coaches who look like Deion Sanders, who do the things such as coaches of Lou Holtz and Urban Meyer's, but these coaches are praised, and guys who look like me and Deion were denigrated to a lower, lesser vessel of a thug slash criminal. We find ourselves yet to another coach, and this coach is very familiar, which the media has made him a darling, but we know what's under the disguise. Now, this coach is Mike Gundy. Now, Mike Gundy has been in assortment in a whole lot of stuff, such as allegations concerning involvement in bonuses and basically a system for playing players, along with direct payments and no-show or sham jobs involving boosters, continued diminished academic standards, including players playing who were otherwise academically ineligible, such as having players' schoolwork done by so-called peers and other people around the areas of it. And yes, this man was basically hiring people to cheat on the test for players. Now, you might love it and say what's wrong with that, but you're the same people who have the same fake outrage towards Deion Sanders, who preaches Christianity, who talks about accountability, and he gets called out worse than any of these coaches we have been highlighting. But Mike Gundy, we are not done with you yet. We are going to do the job that all the communities who look like you have failed to do. Now, there is a player by the name of Alfred Williams. Now, Alfred Williams said this situation would happen. He called out Mike Gundy for situations that happened during a 1989 football game. During this game, Alfred said Mike Gundy called him a racial slur, all because their team was pouncing on Mike Gundy and basically whooped them by like 20 or 30 points. And what happened was, it was a breaking news which Mike Gundy tried to hide behind it at first.
Played against him. Another layer has been added to this story. Former Colorado linebacker Alfred Williams played against Mike Gundy's Oklahoma State team in 1989, and he's been following this story, and he spoke to the Oklahoman about a memory from 31 years ago to which it was a really big win. And I remember Mike Gundy called me the N-word. That's what I remember. Williams added, I want an apology from him, and I want to see him have some growth. If he denies that he said that, I have at least 20 people who will vouch for what happened that day. Played against him.
Notice all the people who've been calling out these coaches, they got actual people who could substantiate what happened, and not just one, not two, not three, not four, no LeBron, but not all these people, only over 20 people, 40 people, 50 people. I've been showing you facts and receipts after receipts. Then how come all these were swept under the rug or only talked about briefly for a little bit and then done with? Now, this is not ending yet, because Mike Gundy would then try to lie and deny all of this, and he didn't use the word during the time he played. But this embattled coach have been given passes. But shout out to Shannon Sharpe, who would go on his platform when he was with the good man Skip Bayless, and they talked about this. They discussed that Shannon Sharpe is close to Alfred Williams. He knows the guy in real life, and they know very well of each other, and they're fond of each other. And he asked him, is this true or not?
Things that I've been honest, growing up in rural South Georgia and played a lot of different teams that were, some were all white and some had a large makeup of white. I've never been called that. And if I had been called that, I probably would have reacted and I'd have said it. I don't make things up like that. But that's something that you don't make up, Skip. You don't put that shirt on someone if they don't say it. You don't do that. And so I said, Play, did that man say that to you? Skip, in the black community, if somebody say, I put that on my kids, I put that on my mama, take it to the bank.
Take it to the bank. And speaking of shirts, since Shannon Sharpe talked about shirts, let's go to another highlight in which Mike Gundy was involved in another scandal, almost the same one as the famous coach Dabo Swinney. You know Coach Dabo, who was found with similar shirts. This shirt right here saying football matters during a Black Lives Matter situation, which officers were by a whole large scale killing African Americans, unarmed African Americans, that is. And Dabo made mockery of it. And not only that, it seems to be a factual fact that coaches who you make your kids go play for, they're playing for these coaches who don't even like them, and these coaches are sending coded messages to a certain community. That's what these shirts are about. And you're probably like, what does it have to do with Mike Gundy? Well, he was involved in a similar scandal as well, wearing this shirt right here, the On shirt, which we all know what it means. You guys can get into that and see deeper into what that shirt means. It caused outrage only for those who knew, but the media swept that under the rug as well as merely a coach just playing around. People saying they stand with him. People were defending the coaches until a football player that we can guaranteed was not going for any of the mishap, and his name is Chuba Hubbard, NFL player for the Carolina Panthers. And I don't know if he still plays for them or not, but he held his coach accountable when he was there and he played with Mike Gundy. He would call him out and he would say, I would not stand for this. This is completely insensitive to everything going on in society and it's unacceptable. I would not be doing anything with Oklahoma State until things change. And wearing that own shirt is no different to when what Dabo Swinney wore. But Dabo and coaches like Mike Gundy love calling out Deion Sanders, but look at their own picnic table. And don't let that part go over your head when I say the word picnic. Most people know what I'm referencing towards, but you guys go find it out. But Running back Chuba Hurts, he responded. He said, I'm a young black man that wants change. I want change that will bring a better experience for my black brothers and sisters at Oklahoma State. It's that simple. Over these next few months I have left at Oklahoma State, I will be working every day to bring change to this organization and to the world. I will be supported by my teammates along with people within an organization. To everyone else, trust me when I say that good will come from this. Now, you guys know that when this happens and it goes viral, and after the media can't hide their loved ones, which is these coaches, they can't protect them anymore. Once the virality has reached amongst too much level, they always do what every other coach do. They write a scripted apology, and that's what happened. Gundy wrote this weak apology here. You guys could read it. I'm not going to read it. And I have a better thing. If you guys are tired of these type of coaches and their fakeness, let's listen to an actual video of his weak apology.
With our team today, our players expressed their feelings as individuals and as team members. They helped me see through their eyes how the t-shirt affected their hearts. Once I learned how that network felt about Black Lives Matter, I was disgusted and knew it was completely unacceptable to me. Pain and discomfort that has been caused over the last 2 days.
The weirdness by this coach, he even sounds like a bot. He couldn't even read it like an actual human being who had compassion for the people who he hurt and the feelings he tarnished. Now, Kurt Herbstreit did a video around this time frame, which got a lot of backlash. People didn't know if he was being heartfelt or fake. So I'm gonna play this video and you guys tell me in the comment sections, how do you feel about Kurt Herbstreit?
This show and Maria's given them that platform to be able to express how they feel, and I think it's great. I also think that if you're a white player in these locker rooms, I think it's incumbent upon you to really help with the change. I saw Dylan Bowles there from Stanford. It's one thing for the NBA and the NFL. Had a great talk. I love listening to his wisdom and his thoughts, and not want to help. You know what I mean? It's like wearing a hoodie and putting your hands in 10 and 2. Oh God, I better look out because I'm wearing Nike gear. Like what? What are we talking about? And so you can't relate to that if you're white, but you can listen and you can.
We're going to talk about this other coach here, one of my all-time favorites, Coach Bobby Bowden, the late Bobby Bowden of Florida State. A lot of the things he kept quiet on got swept under the rug until a famously known athlete by the name of Peter Warrick and his situation blew the covers of things for the late Bobby Bowden. Now, there was a shoplifting scandals that the former Seminole was involved in, also with a former NFL player slash teammate, Lavernius Coles, who was 21 at the time. Peter Warrick was 22. They met with a Dillard's Department store clerk who was only 19 at the time, and this was Rachel Murder, who was actually charged with grand theft on Thursday as well. Now, the clerk was accused of selling the two players $412.38 worth of clothing for only $21.40. Now, this is around the 1999 period, so I know that might not seem a lot to you guys. Man, hell, it does seem a lot even in today's time. Now, a fourth person, Shedrick Jermaine Rhodes, 23, who's not a player, was arrested on a lesser charge of petty theft. Now, this would kick the doors open for a variety of things that were going on at Florida State University. Even the suspension was called something else more little as to nothing. Now, in more recent years, the Seminoles was rocked with academic cheating scandals, and even those were hidden so Bobby Bowden can't lose his situation and his standing as the university leader and legend. Now, Florida State has acquired the nickname Free Shoe University because of an episode which players went on a 90-minute shopping spree, picking out shoes, shorts, gloves, winter coats, and other clothing articles. The national championship that they won in 1993 has been coined the tainted title by Sports Illustrated because of this and several player discipline issues that we just talked about, such as Peter Warrick. Now, Florida State has seemed to have a player in the news for an arrest, you know, from legal disputes from every year. Now, Florida State was also documented to have provided cash payments to several players on the roster, allegedly. Now, the ensuing NCAA investigation led to only a year of probation for the Seminoles, which a lot of people said it was a shocker and surprise because such universities such as SMU was given the death penalty, meaning that they've lost all type of scholarships or whatever, and it damaged the school. So you see how certain coaches get protected because of the selection of complexion. But we'll continue. Now, Florida State has been in these things since Jameis Winston and so on and so on. Now, Florida State academic scandals was one that clearly showed a bias the media favors towards certain coaches. Bowden legacy isn't tarnished after all them scandals hidden by the media. First, let's be clear that the Seminoles got off fairly light on the punishment meter. The NCAA imposed a 4-year probation on FSU athletics for widespread cheating with an online music course that involved 61 athletes, y'all, including 25 football players. Probation is just a warning to not do anything stupid during that time. That's all they're letting them know. Look, we'll let you off if you just leave it alone. Now, FSU lost only 6 scholarships over a 3-year period, suffering no television or no post-season bans. That's not exactly hardship punishments, but I digress. Man, this is what happens when you're part of the good old boys club. Next coach in these bizarre string of things that we have to bring up and talk about, it's no other than media national championship darlings. Well, at least he went there. Steve Sarkisian. Now, Steve Stark, that is, that's the little nickname we give him. He's been in drunken problems for a while right now in the college world. Just like Lane Kiffin, he seems to get job after job after job no matter what, and the media forgives him every time. Now, this guy has been the culprit of drinking situations over and over again.
USC football coach. Well, USC football coach Steve Sarkisian's alcohol expenses are now under the microscope following last week's drunken appearance at a pep rally.
Well, in particular, a bill for more than $1,000 following 2 group retreats.
CBS has tried to really get back to the business of football. He's found it, though, very difficult. He was reimbursed for that are said to total over $1,000. Sarkisian addressed those latest revelations.
I was the head coach, and I took the receipt, and I don't feel bad about people eating dinner and having a good time. There weren't people drinking and driving. It's unfortunate that
USC football coach.
The fact that he can dismiss it and have that blatant conversation with the media, they know how to play the game that's not reserved for people who look like Deion and me and you. Now, we could keep going with this. He was a drunk coach and he loved getting wasted. USC fired him. He was a coach that was fired with cause, and he would spend at least 30 days in rehab facility. Now, this coach who admitted to this admission of being drunk, he would go in on it and talk about medication being mixed with alcohol, still no accountability, while admitting that he is a drunk. And what happened with this is like we're always going to see is going to be an excuse. But check out this clip here and tell me, is coach drunk during live national TV? He yelled at the security to get your hands off me. This is not in the past when he was at USC or Washington University. This is him right now, currently at Texas University. It seems like things are still escalating to be problemsome for the media's darling, Steve Sarkisian. Now, I don't care if I can't pronounce his name correctly. I don't care about scumbags. You people do. We good people who you love talking about and denigrating, we could care less if we pronounce their name correctly or not. Now, he sued for over 30 million and he clearly lost the lawsuit. How on earth can you sue a school when you clearly had a problem? You clearly was the issue. Now, he snapped and had all these type of braggadocious situations because he knows he can say anything and the media is not going to propagate upon it, blaming you're mixing alcohol before events and medication, and they continue to give you a pass. Can you imagine a drunk Deion Sanders on national TV? Can you ever appear to the fact that they'll give him a second chance? I doubt if he'll even be able to go back to his family. He'll probably get some type of criminal charge knowing the Mayo Nation. Now, with this situation, he claimed he got humbled from the back and forths. I don't believe any of it of him being humbled as you guys look at some of these clips, because this still was the news of your famous coach Steve.
When video surfaced of Sarkisian had gone to a pre-practice meeting smelling of alcohol. And back in August, Hayden had stern words when video surfaced of Sarkisian at a pep rally, cursing and slurring his words.
Get ready to ride on, baby. Let's go!
Sarkisian quickly admitted he'd mixed prescription drugs with alcohol and said he'd undergo unspecified treatment.
The way I acted was irresponsible.
Since then, several other allegations have been published about Sarkisian's alcohol use. The LA Times says it conducted a series of interviews suggesting alcohol use was an issue back when Sarkisian led the University of Washington's football programs. When video surfaced of Sarkisian had gone to a pre-practice meeting smelling of alcohol. And back in August,
it just seems all of these Mayo coaches have the same excuse and the same written apologies that are scripted. You know what I mean? It's never from the heart. It's never serious. You can't tell me that these guys don't get away with everything. They do. They get away with everything. Now, Steve Sarkisian openly discussed alcohol rehab and being humble, blah, blah, blah. You guys can pause and read that. I bring receipts just to show that I'm not just rambling on through jealousy and being a professional victim. The one thing I will give to Steve
Sarkisian's wife, L'Oreal.
He can pick a beautiful female because he picked a beautiful black sister to be his wife.
Coach Sarkisian's wife, L'Oreal. She sat down with KVU's Emily John Greco and is sharing her goals for our community and the UT team.
Well, welcome. Thank you for taking the time to sit down with me.
Thank you for having me. I'm really honored. But since we've gotten here, everyone has been fantastic. Seriously, we are really honored and blessed to be here. But apart from that, too, I mean, the warm welcome we have received has been over the top.
You were Coach Sarkisian's wife, L'Oreal.
If that wife, L'Oreal, had a husband who looked like Deion Sanders, she would never want to be on that camera because the media would ridicule her as if she did something wrong. And that's all I'm saying is the media placates on coaches who they favor based on who looks like them, and other coaches they talk bad about and bring them down through media and propaganda based on who looks like Deion Sanders. And then there's Ryan Day. Now, Ryan Day gave a couple of allegations which people couldn't find merits to it, such as one of them saying that Ryan Day's brother was one of the people involved in the Michigan sign stealing scandals, and a lot of those things were brought up or propagated to just be made up as well. But we'll never know, since a lot of people who are in charge swept that under the rug as well, but they cleaned it properly so and didn't highlight it the way they've done coaches like Deion Sanders. Now, Ryan Day allegedly knew about Urban Meyer's situation with the 2015 DV incident involving ex-assistant, which, you know, that made him to be in this position which he was held as head coach, which a decision that was helped and chosen by the committee by no other than Urban Meyer, who is his close friend to this day. I mean, everybody on the staff should have been fired during those allegations, but the likes of Urban Meyer, he got to get another job at Jacksonville, which we'll go on that later. But with Ryan Day, it seems he gets promoted to be involved in a situation allegedly that we all know coaches share these informations with each other. But when it came to Deion Sanders, they claimed that it was isolated situations. He shouldn't have did what he did to Sean Lewis and blase. But this documentary is gonna go deeper, ladies and gentlemen. Don't go anywhere. Go get your popcorns. We're just getting started. Hey, just a little commercial break to remind you guys to keep watching, liking, and sharing and commenting on the video that you're watching. Let us know your insights and what do you think about this documentary. Thank you for joining us. Hearing Nick Saban saying that college football isn't fun anymore, it's the same thing that we've seen from John Wooden of UCLA and Sam Gilbert all over again. You can't sign the #1 recruiting class every year for a decade and not be breaking the rules. This is factual, ladies and gentlemen, because we've been seeing a lot of things transpiring with the Saban era that doesn't get called out like they called Deion Sanders. Yes, success begets success, and kids want to play for a winner, but it defiles logic how a coach who went 6-6, 6-5, 7-5, 6-6, 9-2, 8-4, 10-3, 8-5, 13-1, 9-3, and then bombed in the NFL for the Miami Dolphins, then shows up after Mike Shula. He shows up after a long history of NCAA infraction cases, who wasn't relevant for a decade, and turned them into the greatest powerhouse in the history of college football overnight, Alabama. But now NCAA President Mark Emmert was the chancellor at LSU who hired Saban, and he's also allowed him to operate basically freely with full immunity since. And these are the things they don't call out that get swept under the rug with the likes of ESPN. Now, we know some of the allegations as you're seeing here. I did my journalistic duties where I got these receipts from these former players of Alabama, and these were the vehicles that were given to them allegedly during signing day that made them sign to Alabama, the one recruiting class alone. Now listen, this is a monopoly of talent never seen in college football before, and anyone who thinks they are doing this above, broad is out of their mind, in my opinion. These are just a few of the stories that have trickled into the public over the years under Saban. Mind you, this is just the tip of the iceberg, ladies and gentlemen. There's been more things being revealed. Now, these pictures I'm showing you were collected from IG accounts of the current 2016 players that were dumb enough to post them and have public profiles. Tip of the iceberg is an understatement of the year when you're looking at all these things in totality. But the Saban situation always gets swept under the rug. Absolutely amazing. And it reminds me again what Reggie Bush was riding around in, that did the hoopla, some 2000-ish Impala that wasn't worth squat, but a huge deal was made about it, and nothing about these vehicles and all these postings during the Saban era, during one 2016 recruiting class alone. I mean, the #1 player had a 99 Impala, free rent. This isn't right or wrong. It's about selective enforcement. You have two choices. You hear me? You'd have to be a fool not to understand the difference. No freaking way all the cars belong to the players, right? According to you guys, surely the brainless gumps are not even that brazen, particular the dude pictured with 3 different cars. Please tell me this guy does not own 3 cars if this is infatuated. Now, we can go on with more situations.
In the paper.
This video, how Nick Saban tried to accuse Deion Sanders of doing the same alleged things.
In the paper. Jackson State paid a guy $1 million last year that was a really good Division I player to come to school. It was in the paper, and they bragged about it. Nobody did anything about it. But the in the paper,
You know that was crap right there, because Deion and Travis have said it several times. This was not about NIL deals or anything like that, and they didn't get any money for it. But you get to get ridiculed by a man like Nick Saban, who's known what he's been doing. Let's, for instance, talk about DJ Flocker, since everybody wants to pretend not know what's going on. Now, there was players accepting money from runners, and it's not even allegedly anymore. A lot of players from Alabama came out and admitted to this. One was the likes of DJ Flucker, who allegedly received imperishable benefits prior to completing their collegiate careers. This was going on, such as reports according to a Yahoo report that reported, and you guys, as you get the receipts amongst there, you guys needs to copy, I mean not copy, but pause the video and read these reports. Now, according to Yahoo reports, former Alabama defensive end Luther Davis acted as an intermediary between the players and multiple NFL agents and financial advisors. You know what I'm saying? DJ himself admitted to all of this, so this is not something that was just being thrown out there. He said, yeah, I took college money, so what? I did what I had to do. Agents was trying to blank me, so I blank cash. And I mean, this is him literally admitting to it with nothing being, you know, held back. This is receipts that Yahoo showed showing Western Union monies amounting to total benefits of $45,000. And I have no problem with players getting money, but this was a time before the NIL situations, and Nick Saban and those allegations clearly violated the NCAA bylaw 12-3-1-2, which prohibits athletes from receiving extra benefits from prospective agents or marketing representative. The violation could impact Flucker's eligibility, that is, and potentiality, and the Alabama wins he participated in, including the 2012 discovered basically national championship trophy. That should have been vacated. Now, the second Yahoo report showed more things that we should have looked at, such as the alleged situations that former Alabama safety Mark Barron, that they claimed accepted some of these things. If you guys don't know who Mark Barron is, this is Mark Barron right here. Now, Mark Barron has been alleged for these same things that a lot of other people are actually, you know, situations are not even being talked about the way they've talked about Deion and all this other things. But we know if Barron accepted money while he was recovering from a shoulder injury as a junior in 2011, at least allegedly it's been alleged, and it kept him from declaring for the draft. Text messages obtained by the website shows that Barron was asked to repay money after signing with, you know, the basically the opposing competition, I guess one would say, and that made the agency air out Nick Saban's dirty laundry. Now, Alabama coach Nick Saban at that time said he supports the school compliance department, and then he refused to answer further questions on the matter. Like, they've been accused of playing you know, agents and players being paid. A lot of these things been out here. Now, Nick Saban, it's just weird how he admitted to this part. He said, you know what I'm saying, relationships with players didn't seem to have the same meaning. He's talking about the NIL situation.
Nick, you've kind of repeatedly been a little bit critical of everybody beyond the first team, you know, first grouping a little bit. Does that concern you? I mean, you got another week of preseason practice. Does that concern you at this point that there's not more progress from the second and third groups?
Well, I've been concerned about this all along. I mean, so I don't even know why you would ask the question, because you all know. You just think we just, you know, whatever happens, we just get another player. Everything's going to be perfect. All of our fans think that. You all think that. That's what you write about. That's the message that you send out there. And yeah, I worry about it all the time. I may be the only one, but I do worry about it.
I mean, this hypocrite, when you break rules and you are a Mayo, the media and journalists will look the other way, sweeping the scandal under the rug. This is until it gets too big and the dirty secrets under the carpet gets revealed. Now, their players have been accused of taking banned substance and such as other things. Now, you can read some of these documents. I'm gonna fast forward through them, and you can just pay attention and pause it or whatever. Now, they had a huge memorabilia scandal. Their coaches have allegedly committed NCAA recruiting violations. You know, just a lot of things going into that. Either do what it takes to compete or call out the cheaters to the level, to level the playing field basically, or double down your recruits' effort even more. Only options from my personal opinions on it. Now, Nick Saban allegedly violated NCAA rules by recruiting former Louisville receiver Tyler Harrell before. Now, let me get his picture for you guys to show you guys who Tyler is, because it seems once again the media will continue to not speak on these things and dismiss them under the charters as some form of, okay, nothing even happened and it wasn't anything serious. And I apologize, I don't have his picture right now, but you guys can go get his picture yourself. I'm gonna continue on with the program. But the fact that, you know, this recruiting of Tyler before he entered the transfer portal in April, Harrell, who caught 18 passes for 532 yards and 6 touchdowns during that time he entered the portal on April 12. 10 days later, he committed to Alabama. Nick's against the NIL, so as long as he was the only one paying players. That's the whole thing of Nick Saban. As long as he top numero uno is allegedly paying the players and getting all the #1 recruiting classes, it was fine and dandy. Now, it's not as important that Alabama was allegedly paying players as much as it was important to note that the NCAA knew it, and because the president of the NCAA situation is friends with Nick Saban, he got protected during all this. I mean, they did nothing. Just for comparison, Kansas and BB, you know what I mean? Truly believe that this is why the NCAA never came out with NIL guidelines in its earlier stages. In their stupid minds, they figured it would hurt and change the top program, so they sat on it until we now have what we have today. Who elevates the NIL to the U.S. Supreme Courts? Not the NIL guidance for change. But we're gonna go to somebody else, another coach. But this was just showing you the hypocrisy and how the media, they'll try to tarnish the name of the Sanders family, but they swept all these under the rugs and they rarely even bring any of these up. That's why Nick Saban extremely spicy targeted rant on the NIL came with such a strong stench of hypocrisy. He claimed that Texas A&M bought and brought every single one of the class, but of 2002 recruits, you know what I'm saying, he got called out by the said so coach Jimbo Fisher, who called out Nick Saban and said they have been buying every single player. The next guy that we need to talk about that the media also protects, who dereliction of duty, these journalists who have failed to be non-biased, who failed to be an actual free press. They're bought and controlled by the masses. Now, this guy is by the name of Luke Fickell. He was at Ohio State even during Jim Tressel's tumultuous allegations and the things he got in trouble for, even criminally wise. Luke Fickell was there. He also was there at Cincinnati. He's currently now at Wisconsin. Well, Jim Tressel's teacher's pet, we call him. Luke Fickell is a former Ohio State player who has been on the staff for the last 10 years, coaching linebackers and mostly recently serving as co-defensive coordinator. This is during the time of Jim Tressel that I'm reading and telling you about. Now, Luke was not there for the Urban Meyer scandal, but he definitely was part of the Jim Tressel era, which saw equally tumultuous times with vacated wins and a loss to Michigan football left and right. Luke stranded as the co-defensive coordinator at OSU until his eventual departure to Cincinnati outside the Power 5. Now, why is Luke famous? He's the guy who kind of wanted to make Jim Harbaugh lie for him, and Jim didn't want to lie for him. And Jim said this during a live national audience, which we played earlier in the documentary.
With Fickell since you've spoken with Fickell since this all unfolded?
No. That was the one time that he called in March, and I even told him in March. I said, Coach, my understanding of this is, you seem to think that there's something this is some kind of coach to coach. We're going to work a deal here, and that's not my understanding of how this process works. It didn't work that way when Shea Patterson was was transferred from Ole Miss to the University of Michigan. I mean, I was told I wouldn't have any involvement in it of Shea Patterson.
Now, shout out to Jim Harbaugh, but I think he was just cleaning his hands. He didn't want to be with a snitch who's known as Fickle. You feel me? Luke Fickle, that is, an alleged one, that is, because a lot of people tied him around the Jim Tressel thing and how his hands got cleaned. How didn't he get in trouble? And he's still coaching today with Wisconsin. Now let's continue. Cincinnati's problem at the time when Fickle was there, it comes as Fickle says when he called Harbaugh in what appeared to be a negotiation, one that he came out on top with 2 other universities. Jim wasn't having it. Coach Fickle tried to coach me on how to say it differently, Jim said. See, Fickle is a liar. I'm glad Jim called him out. Not saying it in that way, I told him I'm not going to lie. This man knew everything Ohio State was doing. That's my personal opinion, because if you can try to make Jim coerce a situation with you, why wouldn't you be doing the same thing when Jim Tressel was caught with the scandal of Maurice Corlett, Terrell Pryor? We've seen all this already. We've talked about it on the documentary already. Now in 2012, as weird as it seemed, this dude Luke basically has a lot of egotistic Caesar wannabe vibes towards him. They call Deion for everything else. They call Deion Hollywood. What if I tell you a story which this dude was giving a problem to people delivering pizza to his wife because they made a joke in 2012? So a worker actually got fired. Now, making a harmless crack, that's what got him rid of. If you don't believe me, here it is. This gentleman right here was fired, a delivery guy from North Columbus, because the wife of Luke Fickle called the manager to have this guy removed. Now, they denied it, but a lot of people, including this guy, said it was true. Now, who else could have got this guy fired? Now, the joke that this gentleman made was something as little as what you're seeing on your screen. It was a harmless crack at the defense of Ohio State. Now, it was hardly a reason for a manager to follow up with the customer, said so the wife of Luke Fickle. This goes above and beyond for any pizzas that I've ever ordered. Like, man, shoddy service or not, this is literally going above and beyond to ruin somebody's life and to get rid of them. As you can see here, people tried to act like this wasn't nothing, but let's just say this again. Had this happened to Deion Sanders, would they look at it as nothing the way as they've done for Luke Fickle, such as situations with his entire career? This guy has been laden in scandals and scandals, yet he goes untouched. The media doesn't bring it up, yet Deion Sanders, who hasn't violated anything, he's being called out at the whims of everything. I don't want you guys to ever forget one of the coaches who kind of got lucky. He was a certain complexion, and that was no other than Jim Tressel, involved in one of the most notorious scandalous scandals at the Ohio States, which seems to always involve in these type of scandals no matter which coach from the Mayo Nation gets hired. Now, with Jim Tressel, he had situations with the Maurice Corlett and other things got revealed. He also had situations with Terrell Pryor, and we know this and what was going on with Terrell. Basically, it was ups and downs. Now, Tressel would get removed from the helm of things, but if you've seen what he was involved with, he kind of got lucky compared to other coaches who have been called out for worse and never being able to coach again. With Tressel, they kind of let him elongated all these allegations. Like, they knew about it as far as the media and journalists, but a lot, as long as Ohio State was winning, didn't want to bring it about, just like the same things that happened for no other than Nick Saban. Mark Emmert, the president of the NCAA, only acted on Tressel after almost 10 years, basically a decade of allegations that were proven to be true. It kept getting swept away. Now, Tressel knowingly hid the violations committed by the players from the NCAA, which led to him being forced into resignation earlier in the offseason. In a report written by Sports Illustrated, Tressel was also accused of rigging drawing at camps, making sure the top prospects would win jerseys and cleats, basically NIL before NIL, but going against the prohibits, basically the laws that set that as an illegal so-called move. And basically you're not supposed to be even getting these wins active on the win scores. They're supposed to be vacated because the win shouldn't count when you find out illegal things they were getting, because now it's legal. But back then, let's not beat around the bush, that was illegal as hell. And a lot of the media placated towards the press conferences, basically giving alley-oops to their favorite coaches who reminded them of their uncles or whatnot. And a lot of these things were always turned on a blind eye. Many players were been calling this out. Now, due to the free cliques in Jersey, Terrell Pryor thought he could do the same thing, but only got paid. Now, Pryor chose to leave Ohio State to evade what would inevitably basically be known as a season-long suspension. He instead became eligible for the NFL supplemental draft and waiting to hear if a team would choose him. Now, we know what happened with his career. I hope he get well. We know one of the women in his life stabbed him up a couple of times, and it was a very serious matter. We know he converted from quarterback to wide receiver. He had great years when he was at Cleveland Browns, especially that one year where he eclipsed the 1,000 yard. But things like that being hidden from the public to a certain degree, while they're going out their way to call out Deion Sanders, every little thing that's happening, they'll blow the thing up to a scandal when it's not even a scandal. It's regular nature things between a coach, former player, and these things happen with every university, but they're isolating it to a Deion Sanders thing. This was what happens with the prime effect. You get a lot of outlandish fake outrage towards a coach for a particular reason, because he looks the way he looks. Next coach we're speaking about is no other than Clemson's very own Dabo Swinney. The man who religiously continues to go at Deion Sanders nonstop. Now, this guy, Terry Kennard, he spoke up about the things that Dabo was doing to his son Jaden. If you guys want to know who his son Jaden is, this is his son Jaden right here. Now, the allegations that were claimed by the father, who's a Clemson legend, if you don't know who this man is, Terry over here, I'll tell you. Terry Kennard is a Clemson football standout who helped lead the Tigers to their first national championship in 1981. Kennard took Clemson's football coach Dabo Swinney to task on his Facebook, which is this picture over here. I'm gonna post again. And he talked about the mistreatment of his son Jaden. Now, Jaden is a redshirt freshman at this time from Sumter who got treated badly during that year of December 29 during the Gator Bowl. Swinney made Jaden's last two practice the worst experience of entirely the whole time, the dad said on the Facebook. He purposely belittled Jaden, insulted him, and said other things towards him. He called him names. Now, this 2 days public onslaught went far beyond anything resembling any kind of appropriate coach to athlete exchange. Coaches can use tough tactics, but when trying to get the best out of a player, this was definitely not that. It became obviously Dabo personally, and it was overkill towards the player Jaden, who's the son of a legend, just like the situation which Dabo called out Deion Sanders, or the audience in the media called out Deion Sanders for merely responding to a Twitter rant towards one of his transferred players, and they called Deion Sanders everything under the sun than what his mom calls him. You know what I mean? But yet they sweep this under the rug. We're not even done yet. Now, Jaden, he disputed all this as false and said it's true what his dad said, and he went deeper with it until Dabo released his own statement. Dabo said, "I dispute this claim. He's being mistreated." You know what I'm saying? Like, this was taking a situation that literally spurned left. Now, the racist coach Danny Pearman would prove that Dabo is a liar as far as the things that go on within the Clemson situations. Now, if you don't know, Danny Pearman's use of a racial slur went viral. It set up waves and everything that got swept under the rugs again. Now, Dabo's response was what quite strange, how the media didn't want to pay attention to it, but I'm a good journalist. I paid attention to it. Now, if you don't know, Dabo made an excuse for the coach's slur, and this was his defense of that coach.
And so, there wasn't anything swept under the rug. There wasn't some dirty secret. We handled it head on. And also will say that forgiveness and grace, I think, is important. It's important for any of us. But I've known Danny Pearman for 30 years. And Danny Pearman is a good man. He's had incredible relationships with his players. You can call Dwayne Allen, you can call Jordan Leggett, you can call Brandon Ford. And so
you see this guy, he is smiling and talking about this as if it was nothing. And it's always these guys. You see the pattern here? It's always people who are their friends they give passes to. Same thing with Urban Meyer or the Jim Harbaugh situation, Nick Saban. It's always these people who are involved, just like Mr. Emmert, the president of the NCAA, who's friends and who also hired Nick Saban. They protect each other. This is the good old boys club, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm not done with this, but we know this situation. Coach Pearman was correcting DJ, they claim, and he was yelling at a player. DJ basically said something that he shouldn't, and the coach went off. And what Dabo seems to not care is about the person's feelings. He said in a statement that Pearson made a mistake. He repeated the word, only trying to stop people from using it. Well, talk about a conundrum. He said, I would fire a coach immediately if he called the player the N-word. No question asked, Dabo said during that particular Monday. But that did happen, and he didn't even do anything about it. But it shows you the character. They love talking about Deion Sanders' family members. What if I tell you the brother of Dabo Swinney was arrested, ladies and gentlemen? This man was arrested for some unheinous charges. It was for stalking and an educational purpose situation involving a minor. You guys could read it. I'm not going to get into it for the algorithm. This is his brother right here, no other than Henry Swinney, and he looks like a Swinney, no doubt. And all these things got swept under the rug. Can you imagine if this was Deion's brother or family members? I mean, they're talking about Shiloh's 2016 lawsuit that happened in 2015, almost a decade, and they're still talking about it as if it's breaking news because no other than the likes of Jason Whitlock who brought it about. But you guys can look at the receipts here. Look at some of the allegations that happened, and to you naysayers, you're going to doubt it and say it was nothing. But the brother at least admitted guilty to the stalking claim, you know, towards the ex-wife or whatever that was involving in the Alabama situation. But it goes deeper, man. It doesn't stop. Dabo got in some other situations, as you can see here, that went famously during the situations of cops killing African Americans who are unarmed. There was a wave of a group called Black Lives Matter, which Dabo would use a shirt during the same moment to say football matters. Everybody knows it was a shade towards Black Lives Matter, including the football players who plays for him. He shaded, no doubt. And what made it even worse about that, he shaded, he also, and I want you guys to look at it here so there's no sugarcoating it, but this was his response to that situation.
Address that. And then the last thing is, I had a t-shirt on that someone took a picture of me that asked to take a picture, and it's a shirt I've had for a couple years. It's given to pretty much every coach by the National Football Foundation, and that's been their promotional thing, I think, since all the way back in 2014. And I would just say any insinuation that I was trying to mock the Black Lives Movement, Black Lives Matter movement, it is just an attack on my character. Address that. And then the last thing is, I had a t-shirt on that
What's sad about that is he took no accountability for it. Everybody knows when you added that matters in football what you were talking about. You came with a scripted note, sir. You refused to talk about the situation openly with your heart and just you speaking, but they always get a scripted paper to hide what they're doing. Now, this is been an embarrassment for the university because he even went on Fox trying to defend the situation. Who would have thought? Fox News and Fox Sports? We're not going to get into that. And it continues on. You see the pattern with the racist antics involving African-American players and Dabo Swinney. Now there's a player right here by the name of Hamid Williams who claimed that Dabo used a racial slur towards him in the locker room in front of the whole team. Notice that every player who accused these coaches, they had all evidence to back them and support them. They always had credible evidence like other characters involved. Now, this thing goes a little bit deeper. You can see where Dabo, and I'm gonna show you guys a receipt. You guys can read it, but these things were swept under the rug from the likes of ESPN and other outlets. Meanwhile, they're talking about Deion Sanders for a micronism of a fraction compared to what these coaches, all of these coaches I've been talking about in this documentary, and you can see how things are far different when it's a different complexion. Now, he speaks about these things with a weak excuse. You see what he said here. I'm not perfect. Nope, far from it, Swinney ranted. I've been part of failure many times, but there ain't nothing in my life that I failed at. Tyler never ever, Swinney told Tyler from Spartanburg, that fans like him are part of the problem. He's calling other fans part of the problem. You see that? Now he says the expectations are more than appreciated. And I want you guys to know that the cops also try to protect him in this situation, which was actually scathing. And it showed you how coaches like him get protected by the entire segment. If you guys don't believe me, I want you guys to read this article right here. I'm going to make it big for you guys, but Dabo clearly in this situation was protected by Southern Carolina cops, that is. And just read this right quick, and I want you guys to see what he gets to get away with over there. I want you guys to pause that, and now let's put it again. Now these are the police stations supporting my claim, the actual accounts of events that happened with him addressing certain fans who exposed him. I'm not gonna even waste time playing the other one, but I want you guys to see that yourself to know how far certain people of the Mayo Nations will protect each other and stay on code during all of this at the same time. Now, it's just more things. I'm not done with this thing. He speaks about these scripted events, but he doesn't go deeper into it. Now, Dabo comments on racism is merely the little things you should worry about. When asked about players protesting during the anthem, he previously said it's so easy to say we have a problem, but we got a sin problem. He also stated that his players would be in trouble on the team for exercising this kind of dissent. He's also the same coaches who said these Black Lives Matter people who needs to leave the country. That was his sentiment towards it, and then he cleaned it up. Now it goes on. Dabo is calling out players the same way they claim Deion Sanders was, but he had in a rift between a former quarterback, DJ Uguala, and his father, Big Dave. If you don't know who they are, this is DJ and his father, Big Dave, right here. They would insinuate some other things and allegations on Dabo, and it goes deeper. Now, the father of DJ would say that Dabo's stance on the NIL and transfer portal was more hypocrisy that you've seen. They claim Dabo couldn't adapt with quarterbacks and actually get them ready for certain situations. He talked about the NIL, how Dabo doesn't want to pay players at all, but yet they call Deion Sanders a broke, cheap coach. But when you're reading coaches like this here, including Matt Rule, begging and jiving, you know what I'm saying? Just a lot going on. Now, the dad, he basically who looked at the situation and called the coach out in a proper manner and proper way. Hey, just a little commercial break to remind you guys to keep watching, liking, and sharing and commenting on the video that you're watching. Let us know your insights and what do you think about this documentary. Thank you for joining us. Now, this documentary is going to be for well over an hour or two, so I want you guys to get your popcorns and enjoy it. But with Dabo, it goes more deeper. To hear his eccentric, corny speeches on scripted situations or not.
They are ready to lead the way in being a part of the solution for this country. And I stand with my players, and I will help them any way I can to unify people and help create positive change.
Now, that was his weak excuse for the situation, and these are all scripted. He's the same guy who said this about NIL.
Thinking through it, and I mean, for me, we built this program on NIL. We really did. And it's probably different than what you're thinking, though. We built this program in God's name, image, and likeness. And that's how I look at it. So thinking.
Man, that was the corniest, fakest speech ever. And this is the thing they get away with, because these gentlemen remind these media personality of their uncle, their father. But let's just be honest, man, the unbearable entitlement of Dabo Swinney, it goes far deep, and how the media protects them and cleans them up. I don't know if you guys know about it, but I do my homework as a journalist. There's a place in Clemson called the Tillman Hall. This place has a travesty of history, ladies and gentlemen, and it's sad. Now, two schools from the heart of Dixie, two head coaches in Nick Saban and Dabo Swinney, who make staggering sums of money. Two basically teams that are overwhelmingly filled with African Americans on their teams, and in a move that makes past alumni spins in their grave, led by African American quarterbacks. Two teams with defenses unafraid to unleash helmet to helmet hits against their opponents, hits that sent these amateur players into a sideline tent where they could be ministered to and by school trainers away from prying eyes to see the hidden things and agendas. Now, two teams who rabid student sections who were basically overwhelmingly, if not entirely white, living vicariously through the violent exploits of their black classmates. Now, this place here, the reason why I had to give that whole speech, now the Tillman Hall, these are basically also two schools where the history of the South hangs like a nightmare over the 21st century campus. The University of Alabama basically is a central chapter of the Black freedom struggle in the United States. It's where segregationists such as Governor George Wallace tried to physically block the university's doors. And Clemson, right here with Tillman Hall's very own, Clemson is built on the grounds of notorious Vice President John C. Calhoun's plantation. You know what I mean? This is factual. Calhoun was perhaps the country's most prominent 19th century spokesperson. You hear me? Now, listen to this part. He was the spokesperson for using Africans' bodies as slave labor. There is also a building that I'm talking about continuously right here. I'm showing you Tillman Hall, named after Benjamin Tillman. And if you don't know who's Benjamin Tillman, this is the demonic character right here. I'm gonna tell you a little bit more. Now, Benjamin Tillman, he was the proud, violent white supremacist, former senator, and someone who had a black state senator named Simon Corker assassinated in 1876. Now, Simon wasn't just anybody. Simon was someone who basically was a black state senator named, basically, you know what I'm saying? He was one of the main flourishing black senators during this time, because history and schools today will make you feel like Obama is the first of this and that. Well, black Southern gentlemen were already in politics long time before all these crabs that are being thrown to us as breadcrumbs and pacifier. But this gentleman who assassinated him right here, he's looked at and honored in Clemson. This gentleman right here, Benjamin Tillman, it just shows you some of the things that allows in these universities. Now, this guy killed Simon Coker. Now, Coker dropped to his knees praying to this evil guy right here, Tillman, and then Tillman stood over his body while two of his goons took the life of Simon Coker. Now, students over the last several years who are melanated have been trying to organize sit-ins in effort to rename Tillman Hall, because imagine going to school here and seeing something like this being blessed and honored, and the struggle is still ongoing. And I can keep going on some of the things such as schools like, you know, Clemson, because the history seems like the distant past where we looked at how lucrative these games have become. ESPN paid during this year of 2016 over $7.3 billion to broadcast the college football playoffs. Sweeney was asked about the idea of actually playing given the dramatically transformed economic landscape of the game. He said that if players are ever paid, I'll go do something else, which he's a liar. He's never went, but it shows you the self-entitlement in this world that guys like him has. If anyone has expressed on an obscene amount of entitlement, it's Dabo. Here is someone working on a refurbished plantation who makes millions of dollars off the sweat and head injuries of overwhelmingly black, unplayed at that time, that is, players. And yet when asked about the Black Lives Matter movement in September, he said some of these players and people need to move to another country. This is his words, but people keep making excuses for the guy who says things like this.
December 1 of 08, when I got the job, I was a D+ hire. So, you know, that sticks with me. And, you know,
you haven't forgotten that. It's like when Tom Brady, he's deep in the draft. He remembers that when he wins Super Bowls.
I'm a D+ hire. And every day I go to work, I remind myself I'm a D+ hire.
That you are a D+ hire. Now, college football is a septic tank of entitlement. It's fungal culture created by the head coaches of big football. Dabo is basically very much the very embodiment of the culture of the Mayo coaches, adrift, clueless, and filthy rich. South Carolina Department of Public Safety has issued a first of its kind citizen alert warning residents and visitors about personal and potential encounters with longtime Clemson head coach Dabo Sweeney. They protect this man to do anything he wants. You know what I mean? Especially when he had his famous interview on Fox News
that morning, and you know, the AD, Tommy tells us what's going on. The AD comes in, and you know, I don't know if he flipped a coin or what, but he said, "Hey, you're the head coach now, and I need to see you in my office in 5 minutes, and you call all the shots." And basically, I had a 7-week tryout. So I like to tell everybody I was a walk-on player who earned a scholarship, and I was a walk-on coach who got the job.
You got the job basically by your own admission because of the code and culture of the good old boys club. Then you have the hypocrite Dan Lanning, that is, of Oregon Ducks. He's the one who called out Deion Sanders for clicks and views, yet he's the same coach that's actually playing for clicks and views, because he put a camera in his locker room calling out Deion Sanders and them about clicks and views while he was looking for clicks and views. You know, the typical hypocrites who will use the stereotypical things to condemn and denigrate certain coaches who don't look like them. And then players wonder why Jordan Seaton asks players, why wouldn't you want to play for a coach who looks like you? They run to these other coaches who don't have their interests of themselves at all. Like, let's not never forget Dan Lanning's was on the short list of outrageous accusations, a lot of accusations, but let's just stick to this. I don't have much because I don't want to waste time on him. Other things he's been accused of, I personally don't have a problem with, but he was accused of things like this, where Florida State spoke up and accused Dan Lanning and Oregon of being in contact with running back Rodney Hill during the bowl season before Hill had officially entered the portal. Now, last time I checked, the portal don't work that way. That's an illegal route they just did that went against the actual regulations. But is the media going to talk about it? Is this going to have backlash or any setbacks towards the one that you call, you know, Dan Lanning? No, it's only reserved for the likes of men and women who looks like Deion Sanders, the typical journalist with fake outrage, the media pundits talking about Deion nonstop while giving these other coaches a blind eye and not saying anything about their mishap and shortcomings. But the other coaches were far worse. That's the only reason we'll leave Dan Lanning alone. But don't worry, part 2 is coming up of Dan Lanning. Not on this video. You know we're watching during this season. We are the voices that needs to be heard, because a lot of people are swept under the rug, so coaches like this can continue go unnoticed with the dirty things that they do. Now, would you want to send your melanated players to play for these coaches such as Dan Lanning, who have secret ulterior motives behind the scenes? They could care less about your kids playing for them. It's about him to get in a position to move higher and higher and higher. And if they can use your loved ones, they will. Don't fall for the farce and the hypocrisy of what they say against coaches like Deion Sanders. And one more thing I wanted to bring up about Lane Kiffin. He's been given everything because who his father is, Monty Kiffin. And just like Deion Sanders, the way they ridicule his son, Lane Kiffin, who never played the game of football, he was the son of an NFL coach. He's been given everything. But where is the call out on that? Nepotism is what we get to see with these coaches. Now, this coach that we're bringing up, far too much, the media has given this coach here a pass after pass after pass. He keeps getting hired over and over. It's the notorious famous Lane Kiffin, the one who seems to have secret tape on everybody who's afraid to really just say enough, you can't coach anymore. But he's allowed to coach your kids, my kids, and everybody. Meanwhile, you guys are talking about the coaching standards of Deion Sanders. Now, an oral history of Lane Kiffin firing from all these universities and the things he left as well for better opportunities, which means he doesn't get to get called out the way they called out Deion Sanders for leaving JSU. Now, we know an Ole Miss player had filed for a lawsuit against Lane Kiffin. Notice I'm skipping past the things we know about him already. We can easily go and indulge into that, but I'm going to stick to this new one because this is about mistreating players, man, and we take that serious. In the lawsuit, it alleges that mental health mistreatment by Lane Kiffin. Now, the player who called it out was DeSantos Rollins. He got ridiculed for a while Lane Kiffin got to just get away with a lot. Rollins is reportedly seeking $10 million in compensatory damages from Kiffin and Ole Miss and $30 million in punitive damages from Kiffin. He is also seeking a temporarily restraining order as well as an injunction reinstating him to the university because he got kicked out for foul reasons by this guy, Lane Kiffin, man. You guys got to understand, man. Rollins' mother reportedly asked for Ole Miss trainer Pat Jurgen to find a counselor for her son. Rollins met with Josie Nicholson, assistant athletic director for sports psychology, on February 28th. And after that, it was said that basically Rollins then alleges that Kiffin told him the following: "See ya, go. And guess what? We can kick you off the team. So go read your effing rights about mental health. We can kick you off the team for not showing up. When the head coach asks to meet with you, you don't show up for weeks. Okay, we can remove you from the team." Now, this goes to show you who this man really is, why the media cleans it up for him. When they speak about him, they never mention his past. But Deion Sanders, who's only been coaching for 1 year, they bring up everything they could to tarnish his name, including his image, including his kids' image, his ex-wives, him breaking up with girlfriends and fiancés. They're talking about Shiloh incident back in 2015. How come Jason Whitlock doesn't talk about these things? They choose to ignore them. They choose to not disclose any of this because they worship it. Now, Lane Kiffin also said this: "It's called being a coochie. It's called hiding behind blank and not showing up to work. You show up when your boss blank so, and when you have a real job, okay, someday and your boss say, hey, come in and meet, I advise you to go meet with him and not say, no, I'm not ready to meet with my boss. Maybe a week from now." Now, you guys got to remember, this is going on while this dude Rollins, DeSantis Rollins, is really suffering from mental situations. With me being in the military, I know we can't make fun of that anymore. We can't ignore it, because the same people will make fun of who are having these issues, and then when they lash out and do something, we pretend like we didn't know what was the case. We act like they didn't give a cry for help. Now, to be trapped in your own head and going through these things, which we all suffer from, it's nothing funny at all. Now, according to Rollins, he did not receive a mental health evaluation after suffering a concussion in the 2022 Grove Bowl. Now, his mental health suffered more after sustaining other injuries down the road, where he was forced to play, because if you mention you're hurt, you get ridiculed by coaches like Lane Kiffin. I did remember in the military certain soldiers who had issues like this, and the drill sergeants would make a lot of the platoon leaders and leaders around laugh at that said so gentleman all the time. Now, I didn't go through hardships of boot camp. I loved it, but it was clear as day some people can't really compete like other people. Him pressured DeSantis, that is, to transfer following the 2022 season, and that Kiffin would meet with him in February to tell him he would be moving to the scout team offensive line because he wouldn't transfer, and that if Rollins didn't like it, he should quit. Now, where is the media calling out a dangerous coach like Lane Kiffin like that? You don't say these things to player and you get to get away with it. Now, this is the same coach who described what Deion Sanders is going through. He wrote like this: I had a very large ego. Kids who are given too much to you weren't a kid. You were 31 and 32 years old, but let's continue. He said kids who were given all this, you know what I'm saying, and got to be a head coach for the Raiders, then at Tennessee for 33 years old, USC 34. I wasn't ready for, and that should let you guys know how nepotism and favoritism towards coaches who look like these good old boys club. Look at all the positions he has been given. He never earned it, but these people will call out Deion Sanders' sons and kids and family and even Prime himself and act like they've been given everything. Meanwhile, we've went through this documentary and went over all these coaches who have been given and gained everything for simply who they look like and who they're entitled to be part of these clubs. Now, you guys can pause it and read the rest of what he wrote, but I'm not going to read it. I don't want to regurgitate anything these scumbag coaches bring out. Now, you tell me, is the media fair in their assessment of Deion Sanders in Colorado football compared to all these other coaches I have went down the line and talked about? Now, this coach here did almost the same thing Deion Sanders did, but he did it at a worse level. He lied to the university about leaving. He did a whole lot of things that was ambiguous and just flat out Hollywood, but yet Deion Sanders is the one who gets called flashy Hollywood. Lincoln Riley basically showed you the situations because Deion Sanders left JSU and the media calls him out. Lincoln Riley leaves Oklahoma University and he is praised for the decision by the same said so media that called out Deion Sanders. Now, Lincoln said he just couldn't recruit at the level at Oklahoma to compete with Bama. You feel me? He said he couldn't compete with Georgia, Clemson, or OSU and Ohio State. He basically quit and admitted his coaching level can't compete with harder coaches. Imagine if Deion Sanders said the same thing. What's funny is the coach who helped Dabo Swinney, Brett Venables, the real coach who led Clemson, in my opinion, with that great defense, he went to Oklahoma and did better, at least what we see from Lincoln Riley. He didn't make an excuse. He didn't have any trouble facing the same opponents that Lincoln claimed he couldn't compete with, but yet the media continues giving them a pass. Now, Lincoln tampering of the Blitnikoff Award winner Jordan Addison. We know about the alleged money that was being thrown at Jordan prior through what NIL was offering or allowing. Lincoln Riley arrival at USC 2 years ago was something out of a Hollywood movie. The former Oklahoma coach touched down in California via a private jet. The same thing that Deion did, but they ridiculed Deion, made fun of him, and used the same stereotypical thing towards men who favor the same skin complexion like Deion. Now, the situation was blatant because the Trojan fans were ecstatic. Finally, they got it their way. They stole a coach from another university, a coach who lied to the university he was at. Now, sitting at a disappointing 7-5 on the year, Riley has been a failure at USC, but yet the media doesn't call it out. He's not on the hot seat. He's called one of the great quarterback coaches in the world, but is it really the quarterback coach, or is it all the great 5 stars he was able to get? Just the same, the likes of a Nick Saban, who was not a good coach at all until money played a factor and he got those 5 stars. Now, I don't know what I've seen a worse coaching job by anyone than Lincoln Riley this year, because Deion Sanders was in his first year. Lincoln Riley is a veteran. He's a coaching guru genius. Compared to what the media said, it's a complete disaster, and quite frankly, he ought to pack up, in my personal opinion. I don't really see what his path is moving forward. Now, Riley came to USC as a famed quarterback whisperer who brought Caleb Williams with him, and the things worked out in year 1. Williams won the Heisman Trophy, and the team finished 11-3, and a year after the dismal season, Williams would then go to be the #1 drafted quarterback. Now, actually player all around. Now, maybe Lincoln, who ought to look in the mirror, maybe you are just a total fraud as a coach from lying to your university. I mean, Lincoln was adamant Saturday night on that special night when he addressed the rumors that year, that he would not be leaving and becoming the next head coach at LSU. Well, you can't call him a liar because he didn't become the head coach of LSU. He wouldn't even let the reporter finish his question when he said, "I'm not going to be the next head coach at LSU." Next question. The reason why he rushed her off, because later that day he was being flown in from the private jet and going down there to Hollywood, California. But once again, the media only looks at certain coaches with these disparaging remarks, and they reserve them when it's coaches who looks like their grandfather, dad, brother. You know the rest. This next coach here was one of the coaches, such as Dabo Swinney, to call out Deion Sanders and his coaching tactics and his recruiting tactics. Well, Kalen DeBoer, former Washington Huskies coach, who went to the championship game, and now he's coaching Alabama University. Well, what's going on with that is a lot of things has been revealed with this coach here, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of things has been highlighted with him, starting with all that DeBoer, he has allowed players from his team to play during that championship game while they were being charged graping 2 women at the university. Now, what's wild about this is Kalen DeBoer responded after University of Washington football player was arrested, charged with graping 2 women he allowed to play on the team, players that played for him, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get on with that news before we continue.
Reporting from UW, Erica Zucco, King 5 News.
Erica, thank you. The former offensive coordinator and former athletic director, also responsible for overseeing the UW football players and program last season, are not answering any questions about why the running back was allowed to continue to play after one of the alleged rapes was reported to the university. Former offensive coordinator Ryan Grubb, who is now with the Seahawks, told King 5 he was not comfortable commenting. And former athletic director Troy Dannon, who is now with Nebraska, says he does not have a comment.
Ain't that something that the other one is with Nebraska now? You know, the university who say we do it the right way. We do it the real way. These coaches don't want to talk because they got busted. They got caught. They know they had control of the situation. But like Dabo Swinney says, football matters more than actual humans to these coaches who are praised by the media. Now, we can keep going, but although both are no longer with the University of Washington football program, former head coach Kalen DeBoer and former offensive coordinator Ryan Grubbs, they didn't want to answer questions, and they had questions to answer about their former players but choose to ignore it. Grubbs said in a phone call Tuesday he was not comfortable commenting on the case. Why are you not comfortable? This is commenting on what one of your coaches, said so coaches, done in that situation. You guys can pause the video and read these clips that I'm showing you. Real articles, real journalists that for some reason are swept under the rug, but every day Deion Sanders is talked about and ridiculed for the same reasons that has nothing to do with what these Mayo coaches are doing. Look at this one right here. You're not able able to talk, but you're able to do this?
Suspended Husky running back Tybo Rogers. Court documents reveal the University of Washington says it is aware of 2 felony rape charges and that it's cooperating with law enforcement on the investigation. It was removed from play for the Pac-12 championship game in December, but returned to the field for the Sugar Bowl and national championship in January. A warrant revealed emails were sent about taking Rogers off the Pac-12 roster with no reasons given, and text messages about Rogers were answered with phone calls. UW says, quote, as a result of this arrest, new information has been made available to the UW of suspended Husky running back Tybo Rogers. Court documents reveal the University of
more situations being swept under the rug for Mayo Nation. You can't get around that. Certain coaches who don't look like Deion Sanders, they get protected by said so media, the same media that act like Deion Sanders took their wives or something going on, because it seems everybody who looks the same way are all angry with Colorado's football team and Deion Sanders. Now, what's going on is the bar released a statement. He said, while I'm not able to specify on the situation involving an individual at my former institution because of federal privacy laws, which is crap because you're just trying to hide behind federal privacy laws, Coach Dabar. But let's continue. He says, in the ongoing criminal matters, I do want to make it clear that I take any allegations of sexual misconduct very seriously. Well, the news just prove it's fake. You do not take it seriously at all. Just like Dabo Swinney, sir, football matters to you only. But he continues on. I do want to make it clear. He says as he's reading his statement, I have always and always will follow established institutional policies and procedures to ensure prompt reporting and proper handling of allegations by the appropriate authorities. But we know this is all fake. This is not true. He has been proven to be a liar on multiple occasions regarding this situation, man. Like, you can't get around there. I'm about to play the other video of him.
Accordance with our student, always have and always will follow, is also under investigation for assault and destruction of property charges. The city says that case is still under review, so it cannot release more information quite yet. More on that coming up at 5.
There's more things going on at your university other than what you allowed your players to get away with, sir. You've allowed them to still play in the games. Can you imagine if this was Deion Sanders and his players, his Colorado football players, who are getting attacked relentlessly at every single media outlet and pundits and analysts alive, yet these people say nothing about this coach who's coaching Alabama right now, the Alabama University, Roll Tide University. How did he get a job like that when Ben was reporting on this, but he still got the coach during the national championship? He still got to get the publicity to get the job, because coaches like him will always be protected by said so media, and coaches like Deion Sanders will always be denigrated. I have proven it over and over with this documentary that I have shown you guys. It is clear as day, guys. The goalpost gets moved for other coaches, while certain coaches that looks like Deion Sanders, they're lucky if they even get 1 year of coaching. You can't make any mistakes at all. You have to walk on eggshells when you look like Deion Sanders, because the agenda is in. They do not like our kind. They don't want to see our kinds prevail. I've showed you proof after proof how they don't do the same thing to other coaches who come from the Mayo Nation. Hey, just a little commercial break to remind you guys to keep watching, liking, and sharing and commenting on the video that you're watching. Let us know your insights and what do you think about this documentary. Thank you for joining us. Now, another Mayo coach who seems to be always protected by the media, no other than the educational purpose dude by the name of Kirby Smart. You know, the guy who follows the ranks of one Nick Saban, who also has ties to NCAA President Mark Emmert, who seems to give passes to certain coaches who looks like him. But we already broke that part down. Now, this coach seems to lose people, and people are actually dying in real life around him. Sexual allegations, criminal allegations, people are being arrested, and ESPN only can talk about football when it comes up to Kirby Smart. It seems to get swept under the rug. Could it be the billion-dollar contracts that they have with college football, NCAA? It's a marriage made in disaster where a lot of people innocent will get hurt and nothing will happen. Minor lawsuits, and the news and the platforms such as ESPN will go on and pretend nothing happened. Now, Kirby Smart basically was in the worst thing that you can get involved in. We all know the accident situation that took place after the national championship 2 years ago.
Nearly 1 year after the crash that killed University of Georgia football player Devin Willock and the staffer with the team, who was a driver at the time, Chandler LeCroy, following a night of celebrating UGA's National Football Championship. Well, there are new allegations tonight. They're coming from the passenger in that SUV, who is also another staff member who was disputing those new claims. 11 Alive's John.
Cell phone emerged intact. Tory Bowles' cell phone. Tory Bowles, a UGA football recruiting analyst, was a passenger in the SUV. She, Croy, who was driving, and one of the other passengers, UGA football player Devin Willock, as they were celebrating UGA's National Football Championship. And now Bowles is saying in her lawsuit against the UGA permitted drinking and driving among coaches and staff, and that culture of recklessness is what led to the fatal crash. Bowles claims that, quote, coaches and staff regularly drank alcohol at Coach Kirby Smart's residence during recruiting events, and then in athletic association SUVs. Right there. It is a text to Bowles and others from a staffer who wrote, Cochran told me I gotta get a prospect effed up tonight, so gonna head downtown for the association's rented SUV all during that weekend. Attorneys for the defendants have not yet responded to the association's interests in court.
Nearly 1 year after the crash.
These are staff members and coaches drinking, getting drunk, all at Kirby Smart's residence of place, and you can see the text messages alleging we're gonna get a prospect messed up. If you don't believe these things go down and leads to other things, we'll continue with the witness victim Tory Bowles, who was in the vehicle, but let's go to some other things that Kirby choose to ignore and the media choose to ignore. Kirby and Georgia's AD seems to deny a program has failed to respond to sexual allegations and assaults report. The Atlanta Journal-Constitution has exposed Kirby Smart once again. They described a pattern of program rushing to defend players who have been accused of sexual assault. Now, what you get to see from this coach is a coach who's unwilling to be responsible for the death of Devin Whitlock or the death of Chandler LeCroy or the people who got injured whose lives would be changed forever. We've seen the new documents filled and filed by attorneys for the now former University of Georgia recruiting analyst Tory Bowles, who was injured during the crash, who spoke out on the things happening during the crash. This beautiful young lady thought a university that she cared about would protect her, but she's the one who whistle-blowed the information, providing nothing but credible information, how staff knew all this was going on. They're giving messages, being exchange of drinking, being allowed and getting recruits or prospects drunk. Like, come on, man. Look at her lawsuit. I want you guys to do your due diligence. Look at the docket numbers and go look at it yourself. Like, pay attention to some of the allegations and the things that are substantiated by law enforcement. But how about the fact that law enforcement and magistrates in Georgia are protecting Kirby Smart and the University of Georgia? That's just the good old boys club. When Tory Bowles got injured during that crash that killed the football player and fellow staff member nearly a year ago, she alleged that coaches and staff members were always drinking. Like, you can't get around that. How does ESPN not even continue to bring these things up? Additionally, the court filings that we've seen alleged a specific time in which Georgia coach asked Bowles to deliver cash to him while he was hosting a dinner during an unofficial recruiting visit, which may have been a violation of NCAA rules if the coach has spent the cash on the recruits, which we know this is the case, allegedly by alleged people already saying this been going on. These new allegations were complied in an amendment complainant stemming from a lawsuit that I just showed you guys by Tory Bowles. Now, it alleges LaCroix had a high blood alcohol concentration of over 1.97, and that both LaCroix and Carter were driving at extreme speeds of over 104 miles an hour while engaged in a street racing for about 45 seconds before the crash. In one of the text messages we got to see, in 2019, the director of player personnel for the football program at the time, and one level below Smart on the organization's structure, that is, sent a text to 13 people on the night of a recruiting event at which Smart house it was happening in, how to act while they're allegedly saying that they had pictures of the situation, just getting enamored with a whole lot of, back and forth with this. Let's just be honest, this is wild. I mean, how can you not expect things like that to go on in states and places such as South Carolina and Dabo Swinney, where Benjamin Tillman is still being rewarded? He was a guy notoriously known for killing black African Americans, but yet this is what ESPN choose to sweep under the rug. Now, the lawsuit alleges that during the dinner, a Georgia assistant asked Bowles to withdraw over $1,000 out of his account using his personal ATM card. Bowles then left the unofficial recruiting dinner with LaCroix, where they walked to a nearby ATM. See, this is crazy, bro, how coaches is getting innocent people like Tory Bowles to do their dirty work for them. But the card they were given was denied when trying to withdraw the cash, according to the filing. Bowles and LaCroix then allegedly drove the UGA issued SUV to another ATM where the card was denied again. The lawsuit state that Bowles then withdrew the $1,000 cash from her own personal account, where she secretly provided the coach with the money back inside the restaurant. Why was this going on? What are things going on? It seems to be a institutional lack of control going on with Kirby Smart, but it's protected again by all these people from these pundits, yet they have outlandish outrage towards Deion Sanders. What makes it even more sickening, Kirby Smart and the athletic director, they defended their culture in Georgia after the fatal crash. Not only that, he vehemently made sure he stood on behalf of what he calls the Jalen Carter booking situation. We can go on, man. It's too much, and this would be an 8-hour video if I gave you all the coaches who are actually involved in these things. I could have did a video about Matt Rule as well. I'll do a separate one for that. These things have been going on and on and on, yet nothing to little of anything has been said about these things. And another thing before we continue to the next coach about Jimbo Fisher was that the NCAA issued a ban on satellite camps in 2016, but the ban was rescinded less than a month later. However, a year later, a limit was placed on the camps that allows FBS coaches to go to camps in just 10 days in June and July. Coaches also can only work at camps if they're run or basically partners with an NCAA schools, that is. This was not an issue in which Harbaugh faced any direct action, and he was certainly not the only coach that used satellite camps for recruiting advantages. But however, he was the most prominent to use them and drew plenty of ire from the SEC and ACC coaches as well. Now, a lot of things transpired through Harbaugh's legacy at Michigan. The satellite camp situation you guys got. You got the NCAA cheeseburger suspension, you know what I'm saying, beef and recruiting. You guys Google this and see what I'm talking about. You got the Matt Wise investigation. I urge you to Google it to see exactly what I'm speaking on. Then there's a matter of former co-offensive coordinator Matt Wise. Matt Wise was fired by Michigan basically in January of 2023 following a report of computer access crimes that occurred in Schembelcher Hall from December 21 to 23, 2022. Basically, Michigan sign stealing scandal as well. These are some things that are not, hidden from us, but people choose not to speak about it. And once again, it did get swept under the rug simply for the fact that a lot of people see a lot of these coaches as their peers. They could be their family members, friends. So they look the other way based on who the outrage is favoring towards. In other words, fake outrage is only reserved for certain people in the segment of the community they don't like, i.e. primetime, aka Coach Deion Sanders. Now, another coach we have, I actually like him, but I'm gonna show you the hypocrisy of the media, how certain coaches in the segment, they hide their dirty laundry. So let's bring it up and talk about the controversies and suspensions explained by me that's circulating around Jim Harbaugh. Now, Harbaugh quickly became the king of satellite camps in 2015. The Wolverines plan to visit 9 in June, 9 camps that is. In 2016, his program was lined up to visit 34 in June alone. Now, the practice basically frustrated coaches in the ACC and the SEC, which basically face conference rules keeping them inside the 50-mile radius of their facilities, limiting their abilities to participate in satellite camps. Now, anybody can have a camp from now, and basically they have a prospect, they can have a camp. Alabama coach Nick Saban said back in 2016, when you're expected to go to camp and they can use to promote that camp, such as Ohio State coming, Alabama coming, whoever else is coming, somebody sponsors the camp, they can pay the money. What do they do with the actual money? And that's the actual question we all want to know. Then who makes sure the kids get paid to go to the camp? I mean, this is wild West territory at its best, because there's no specific guidelines relative to how we're managing or controlling this stuff. Now, before I continue more, Jim has also spoke on these things, and we know the situation circulating around him. And in case you forgot, that's because the media have been sweeping a lot of these things. They'll bring some things up when it gets aired out through whistleblowers or whatnot, and they'll pretend they care until the likes of Jim would have to actually have some type of moral. When he called out Jim Fickle and he refused, and said he wouldn't lie for Jim Fickle. And we know Jim Fickle, the Cincinnati coach, who had his own strings in situations even at Ohio State. And we can go from on now, because I guess he got unscathed, but we'll be doing a video about him too. Now, Jim basically said how he wouldn't lie, and help Fickle out in his own situations. This is what he had to say about his situation with Fickle.
Spoken with Fickle since this all began?
No. That was the one time that he called in March, and I even told him in March. I said, Coach, my understanding of this is you seem to think that there's something that this is some kind of coach to coach. We're going to work a deal here, and that's not my understanding of how this process works. It didn't work that way when Shea Patterson was transferred from Ole Miss to the University of Michigan. I mean, I was told I wouldn't have any involvement in it of Shea Patterson. Wasn't involved in it. Didn't talk to his lawyer. Didn't talk to his family. I said, whatever the NCAA decides will be what happens.
Now, for him to even state that and stand on it, that's people are going to say Jim is cleaning his hands, but that's my point. I have no issues with Jim doing that. It's the fact that the media would go at coaches such as Deion Sanders for every little Fickle thing and deem him, this is his character, he's going back and forth with players, when that's not true at all. He finally responded to one of the players who kept attacking his name and his children. Why wouldn't you finally say something? But we're watching this documentary that I'm doing today, and you've seen so many things so far that they keep quiet about and sweep under the rug. Serious things, and some are not even allegations. Now, Jim Harbaugh would also expose Nick Saban, the famous Nick Saban that everybody fell in love with, and Coach Jim would expose this right here. You're reading it. He said, "It's amazing to me, Alabama broke NCAA rules, and now they're head coach is lecturing us on possibility of rules being broken at camp. Truly amazing." Now, it takes educational purposes, intestinal fortitude to do what Coach Jim just did right there. And I'm gonna show you guys another clip that why I enjoyed what he showed, because Bama players having a lot of these allegations that we known about already. Like case in point, this one right here, top of the mark, when Jimbo Fisher was also exposing no other than the great Nick Saban, and this got swept under the rug. And you guys can pause the video and read that receipt yourself. And to even the allegations earlier in the videos where it said so Coach Nick Saban was accused of players being taking banned NCAA substance. Now, a lot of these things you can follow the breadcrumbs to see if they're made up or not. And I follow the breadcrumbs. I believe a lot of the people who release these informations, because if it was a different coach, I'll say the complexion of Deion Sanders, these journalists would go out their way to say it's the truth. They pick and choose based on who the coach is and how prolific he is to damn if you do, damn if you don't situation that one Coach Prime is stuck in. But these coaches have been violating God knows what type of rules that are out there, but damn near every single one, and little is really said about it. I mean, it's announced, it's talked about on the news for a day or 3 or 4, and then it's swept under the rug and it's not even highlighted anymore. And you're only hearing great news about these coaches. Oh, this coach won today, he won this game, or he's about to get a max contract, and yet Deion is having to defend himself against Twitter responses he did to alleged transfers. Jesus Christ. Another one of my favorite coaches, no other than Butch Davis. Now, Butch Davis scandals reigns in a different type of way. Now, he had a Pell Grant scandal, which also clearly seems to be dismissed by the media. And once again, the whole fake outrage culture and cancel culture has forgot about his so-called allegations. But when we're talking about Deion Sanders and Colorado football, it seems to be something different in contrast. And I think I know what it is, and you got it right, the complexion of protection. Now, he has presided over 2 programs. That's Butch Davis, that is. He has presided over 2 programs who have been hit with serious NCAA sanctions. Now, Davis was fired by North Carolina because of a second wave of NCAA violations, leading to questions of whether or not Davis had anything to do with suspended players breaking NCAA rules. Now, Butch Davis has built 2 college football teams to be contenders. I know my great Miami Hurricanes was one of them. You know, South Florida area, salute to you guys. Both have been basically ended being decimated by controversy, tarnishing his coaching resume, which seems to be swept under the rug as well. Basically, in turn, people are being swayed into thinking that if Bowden's win total is deducted, it tarnishes his legacy, puts a black mark on his career. This is part, and the part that is where fans and some media members and those pretending to care about college football lose touch with reality. The shame here is on Bobby Bowden as a leader and also Butch Davis as a leader as well. So I'm bringing both men, since I just talked about Bobby, just to show you like the good old boys club will always have some type of level of contrition, and where people come out and about to either use their pedestals and their platforms to hide the things are going on. Just as well, they can use their platforms to tarnish the name of a true coach who did it the right way. As much as you may not like Deion Sanders for whatever reason, which we know what the real reasons are, but as much as you may not like him, he hasn't done not even 1% to what these guys have been doing and allegedly have been doing and actually got caught doing. And there lies the truth. So how come the fake outrage for Deion Sanders, but not none of these coaches part of the Mayo Nation? Now, another coach who also keeps getting passes from the same media that doesn't like Deion Sanders is no other than Brian Kelly. Now, with Brian Kelly, this one is just wild how he continues to get away with physical things that actually hurt people. And one situation, because of his calling, it caused not a player, but a teammate who's a video coordinator, it caused him to die. Now, the name of this guy who's part of the team as far as, you know, the equipments and all that. It was Declan Sullivan. He was part of the media team of Notre Dame. This is this gentleman right here, a beautiful soul, lost for simple reasons of Chip Kelly wanting to do practice during a weather condition that was said so to be so severe people weren't even supposed to be outside. But what the coach did, you know, Brian Kelly, the one melanated brothers keep putting their kids and sending them to go be coached by coaches who don't even care about them. Now, what happened was a news report came out there that proved that, you know, I mean, I don't want to get in trouble by saying Brian Kelly is 100% at fault from as far as sources of media, but I must say my personal opinion, like the Notre Dame fans who say he is guilty based on the weather conditions. Let's look at video proof of that.
To you. And out of that tragedy apparently tied to the powerful storms that have rolled across much of the country. A Notre Dame student killed when a tower collapsed as he filmed football practice.
But early indications do point to high winds, part of a powerful storm system that triggered as many as 33 tornadoes since Tuesday. Declan Sullivan, a student videographer at the athletics department, was shooting football practice. Officials say he was standing on top of a tower when he later died. A cameraman for the local NBC station was near.
So I didn't really think anything of it until I looked over at the gate to the practice fields and I saw people running out, looking a little concerned. And as I got a little bit closer to it, I realized that it was a little bit more serious.
Twitter and Facebook accounts saying gusts of wind up to 60 miles per hour. Well, today will be fun at work.
To you. And out of that tragedy apparently tied to
You seen them talking about up to 33 tornadoes, winds 60 miles an hour. Now listen, man, Brian Kelly said that Saturday it was his decision to hold practice outdoors on a windy day when a student videographer died after the lift he was in fell over, you know, and rest in peace to him, by the way. Now, Brian Kelly, you know what I'm saying, became heartless in this situation. Kelly said that he decided that the Irish could have a productive and safe practice outdoor on the practice fields, that is, you know, regarding and disregarding that is the warning from the National Weather Service that said the breeze were from up to 51 to 60 miles per hour at that time. Now, the 20-year-old Declan Sullivan was in the toppled to the ground, you know what I mean? And that's kind of sad that we've seen that happen like that, because this could have been prevented had this egotistic coach would have get besides himself. Now, he's the same coach that uses fake Southern accents to get his message across when we know he's from New England.
Brian Kelly shows up to LSU basketball, right? He goes to the crowd, and Meatballs, do we have this here?
Well, this is a great way to get started, and I haven't even won all my games yet. It's a great night to be a Tiger.
Overnight, he became Mitch McConnell.
I'm here with my family. Turns into Blanche Dubois.
I know.
What people are missing is he said, y'all really like me, and I haven't even won all my games yet. He claimed he's going undefeated.
Brian Kelly,
shout out to that podcast. I'm subscribed to them, but the fake Southern accent, I'm using it to dictate, to show you guys how fake this dude is. So when he's not blaming himself for the incident, it's heartless. And it's like, let me go deeper, man. Kelly just never took accountability for it. It's bothering me, man. You can't even find these reports. That's how much he has his situations get swept under the rug, basically. You know what I mean? Now,